here we are, because, of course, the show must go on, right? I mean, some of you have been asking, have you abandoned the wall project? It's been such a long time since the last installment. But the show must go on. So, here we go. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you decided to follow a certain course and then, just as you're about to take the first step, you pause for a second and ask yourself, do I really want to do this? I think most of us have done that from time to time. And this is exactly what happens here in this song. The wall is finished and Pink is completely isolated behind it. He's cut all ties to the outside world, formulated his plan for the future, made all the preliminary preparations. But before continuing further, he stops to ask himself, must the show go on? Well, of course, the first question that needs an answer is, what exactly is this show that is referenced here? As probably most of us know, at least those of us who are native English speakers and most of us who speak English decently well, this phrase is an idiomatic expression in the English language. It's nearly always used in a situation of a certain nature, we could say. That is, when things aren't looking good. Basically, it means that no matter what is happening, no matter what difficulties, complications, or contraindications arise, an event or an activity must continue as planned. It first came into use in the 19th century in the circus business because even if an animal got loose or a performer was injured, it was, to quote Wikipedia, a point of honor not to let the other players down by deserting them when no understudy is available. Of course, it gradually became built into the language with broader application, and so today we use it in practically any context, though still with the same general thrust of meaning. Well, one of the things I've noticed about rock music in general is that it often likes to take common phrases, idioms of speech, even cliches, things that we find in everyday life, heavily used, and focus on them, either to reinvent their meaning or to dig into what they already mean. And that's kind of what's happening here. It's an entire song dedicated to this common expression. The show must go on. And of course, being such a common phrase in the show and performing industries, it's very easy to hear it in a rather ordinary manner. In fact, this phrase carries us back to the opening of the album when he sings, "So ya, thought ya, might like to go to the show," and continues on to tell the audience that they will have to claw through his disguise. In this respect, the song presents a rather literal interpretation of the story. Rock star, falling apart, using drugs to dull the pain, contracts, manager, expectant fans, emotionally dead, burned out, etc., and using more drugs to keep himself going for the sake of the show. An actual show, a performance, a concert. And so, in answer to the question, what exactly is this show being referenced in this song, we could say that the show is quite literally the show, the concert, Pink's concert. But not so fast. First of all, Pink didn't go anywhere. Even later in Waiting for the Worms, he says, "Sitting in a bunker here behind my wall, in perfect isolation here behind my wall." Even the hotel room in the movie is the symbol of being on his way, on the run if you want, meaning not at home. He tried to communicate with home, but there was nobody home, remember? We have to keep in mind that this entire album is about social barriers and the duty or responsibility of each of us to fight against them or to find our way back home. So let's take the music into account in this whole setup and see what it has to tell us about this song as well and how we should interpret it. Unlike many of the songs on the album up to this point, this one is set in a rather theatrical style. We have the chorus sound of "Oh Pa, Oh Ma." We have the solo voice expressing the "some mistake, I didn't mean to," and then asking all the questions. And off in the distance, we have these funny little voices calling, "Take me home, let me go." Kind of the same style as Bohemian Rhapsody. Should I say Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody? It's probably not necessary. I'm probably the only one who was ignorant once upon a time. Anyway, back to Pink Floyd. This theatrical setup causes us to hear it as if we were watching a play with multiple characters presenting their parts. And this ends up being incredibly helpful, influential even, for our understanding and interpretation of the song. If it were all one voice, as in most of the songs up to this point in this album, we certainly could comfortably tend towards thinking of this in a more literalistic, even biographical sense. And if we did that here and now, we'd have to reconsider our whole approach to this work thus far. But it doesn't do that, and it isn't that way. And this is very important to us, to our understanding. First of all, theatrical generally means not to be taken literally. It's a play, it's a story. These are often exaggerated or presented in fantastical ways, which are anything but biographical in the literal sense. But it's all for the purpose of a message. There's a point to be gotten from it all, and it is set up to guide us towards that understanding, towards that point. And that lets us know that this show is not anything about a rock concert, Pink's rock concert, at all. No, the show is the path Pink is on. It's the course he's chosen. The show is his experience behind his wall, or more precisely, the way this experience changes him. And as he pauses here, having completed all his preparations for what he's about to do, he asks himself, does it have to be this way? Actually, is he asking himself? Is he asking, who knows? But he's asking, does it have to be this way? Must I go through with this? Well, yes, if I'm going to do what I've decided, there's no other way to get it done, so the show must go on. The song starts with this very question. Must the show go on? Do I have to keep going on down this road all the way to its end? Before taking the next step down this road, Pink stops for a second to ask himself, does it have to? Do I have to? But it's interesting to notice to whom he addresses the question. Oh Ma, oh Pa. He's reverting to his childhood, calling to his parents as if he were a small boy. This chorus is sung with a rather soft, childlike, innocent tone. This is, we could say, the virgin Pink. Pink as he is ready to launch into his plan, to follow through with his determined course of action, but not yet actually having done it. A sort of child Pink looking towards what he is now and what he will become if he chooses to go on with this show. And as he contemplates the outcome, he's frightened by what he sees. There must be some mistake. I didn't mean to let them take away my soul. Well, we can't say that Pink is actually a virgin to his fate. this voice in the song is another part of Pink in which he recognizes what he's already lost, the most precious, essential part of oneself, of his real self. And this line makes me shake my head every time I think about it. There must be some mistake. I mean, a clueless, ignorant person suddenly facing the reality and in shock at what he sees, uttering an astonished, "There must be some mistake here. This cannot be true." Oh, Pink, but it is true. And then, "I didn't mean to let them take away my soul. That's not what I wanted. That was not the plan. That was not what I was dreaming to become. I didn't mean this." Didn't mean what? Didn't mean to lose my soul. Well, what does he mean by lose my soul? Of course, we can speculate, but in light of the next 3 songs, I believe that he is speaking about his humanity, his identity. I didn't mean to lose my human identity. I didn't mean to become a kind of alien, a creep isolated behind a wall, and now facing this? I didn't mean that. Actually, looking a bit closer, I didn't mean to let them take away my soul. And I feel like saying again, oh, Pink, still you have to blame it on them. Even now, here in your moment of reflection, you will not take responsibility for who you are and what you are becoming? Will you never learn? Actually, this right here is one of the keys to why the show must and will go on. Because to step back, to step away, to turn back, requires an accountability to one's own self. And that is one thing that we've seen over and over again along this journey that Pink will not do. He will not look within himself for his part in this saga. He will not accept that he is his own worst enemy, that it is not about they and them at all. In fact, this brings some clarity to what has happened in the past few songs, because there were moments in which it began to look like he's pulling himself together, he's getting his life in order, he's finding a focus. But no, he's only finding ways to function without doing the one thing that he needs to do, and that is to own his part in this situation. But then, where has the feeling gone? He understands where he is, what he has become, and what he is about to become. But how was this possible? He does not understand. Where has the feeling gone? Where has the soul gone? Where is me? What happened to the me I used to be? The me that I used to know myself to be? He sees who he is and what he is, and that is horrifying, but he will not own it. You can even think back to the scene in the movie where a child Pink found a rather insane-looking person in an asylum scene, and this is a similar moment here. And because he either cannot or will not acknowledge his part, because he does not own his responsibility, it can never change. Therefore, the show must go on. It reminds me of an old apocryphal story of a lazy man who, due to his laziness, had become such a burden for the community to support that it was finally decreed for him to be executed. Rather old story, of course. As he was being carried to the place of execution, lying in a cart because he was too lazy to get up, of course, he was given one last chance. He was offered a bushel of corn. Without even raising himself, he asked, "Is it shelled?" "No, you'll have to shell it yourself." "Well, drive on then." The crux of the message is this. Without Pink owning his part, he can never change. And in spite of the self-awareness and introspection that has sometimes appeared in the past few songs, he still does not acknowledge any responsibility. Therefore, the show must go on. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit because we still have one more question. And this line is, for me, the most painful one. Will I remember the song? When I read that line, when I listen to it, it makes me want to cry. It makes me feel completely broken apart. I mean, just stop for a moment and let it sink in. Will I remember the song? Why does this question hurt me so badly? Well, of course, it brings to mind all that I know, all that I've seen, heard, read, and experienced of people suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's. By the way, have you ever watched the movie Still Alice or The Father? Sometimes I wonder, what if one day I will wake up and step into my music room and stare in bewilderment at the harps here and ask, what are these? Will I remember the song? It makes me cringe. It makes my heart bleed. This is part of Pink's question when he asks, will I remember the song? Because it's about who he is. If he cannot recall who he is, how can he remember the song? But there's even more to this question. Remember, we've just come from Comfortably Numb, which was about the suppression of his inner self. And now this song is the aftermath. This song is where he confronts the fact that having successfully subdued the part of him that would get in the way of his mission, having become comfortably numb, he's lost his soul. He's lost his core. There's nothing left to center him. And he can't feel anything. Well, it might seem self-evident that to be comfortably numb is to not have any feeling, but there are two sides to the experience. Of course we don't like pain and suffering, but we cannot have it both ways. We cannot divorce ourselves from all pain and still expect to have any feeling left. When we cease to care, when we become comfortable and unfeeling, sure, it may remove the sensation of pain, but it also destroys the most crucial aspect of oneself. It's the personal identity, the possession of soul. I just recently listened to Amy Lee's song Lithium, and it made me recall a little book entitled Against Happiness. Well, we could say that this song, The Show Must Go On, is an illustration of the destructive qualities of a blind and unscrupulous pursuit of happiness. The desire to avoid pain, heartache, melancholy. The belief that the world somehow owes us happiness, and if we are not happy, something or someone is to blame. We have to dull our sadness, suppress it, present a strong, clean, orderly, controlled mask to the world. Keep ourselves in military-like order, always clear-minded and focused, just as Pink has ordered his visible life and is, in fact, now on a mission to bring the same order to the world around him. But what does it do, really, to avoid unhappiness? One of two things. We either end up wandering through a candy land full of unicorns, rainbows, and perpetual sunshine, in which there is no rain to water the soul. Or we force a militaristic discipline which erases all softness and color, individuality, personhood. The world becomes hard, intolerant, unforgiving, black and white. Pink's solution goes for the latter, and we are beginning to feel how incredibly destructive it is to create a world for ourselves which does not allow us to accept and live with loss, sadness, tragedy. as the song says, I didn't mean to let them take away my soul. Where has the feeling gone? It's eloquent the way in which Pink's realization of his loss is presented by calling out towards familial relationships, ma and pa. The very relationships which, for Pink, were complicated, unhappy even. Relationships which included a lot of negative elements. But still, he felt those connections. And then the question, will I remember the song? It's not about whether one can recite some lines and finger some tunes. Even a robot can do that. You don't have to be human. No, the question is, how can we remember anything that is at its very core emotional, soulful, personal, if we do not allow ourselves to feel? The removal of feeling is the destruction of all that is human, creative, artistic, expressive, natural. Well, I referred to this movie scene early in this series about the wall, but I feel like it's appropriate to return to it now. Schindler's List. When one of the Jews was trying to get a pass and he's asking the officer in amazement, "Not essential? I think you misunderstand the meaning of the word." And the officer says, "No Blauschein, sir. Stand over there, move. Next." The man starts walking, and as he's walking, he's speaking to himself. "What do you mean not essential? I teach history and literature. Since when is it not essential? History, literature, music, and all the arts. What happens when we don't allow these things in our lives?" Well, in this song, it goes even further than that. We find ourselves digging to the root of it all. What happens when we don't allow these feelings in our lives, these feelings that create these things? We shrink, we shrivel, we become small and hollow with no room for either compassion or tolerance. And that is what has happened to Pink. Pink has done this to himself by building his wall. He's been so focused on the avoidance of all that causes him discomfort that he's destroyed himself. He's destroyed who he is. And this is what Pink sees as he pauses to question whether he must follow this road all the way to its end. He is aware. He does see. He does know. And yet, he concludes, the show must go on. Or, as the lazy man in the story put it, well, drive on then. I'll see you next time.